Greetings everyone, I am Scruffled Umber Rays here today to talk about the final Veritas. That's right, finally, we're here. Somehow we made it. All 8 Veritas units, Veritae, whatever, are in the game, and well, okay, JP players have them. Global players are gonna have to wait a little bit longer, but you guys are getting there. Don't worry, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's probably a train called the 5th anniversary that's going to knock these characters down, but maybe not. So let's take a look from a positive perspective and talk about Dark Veritas. Now, Dark Veritas, I'm going to admit, is looking a little bit beefy, and thankfully for people who are curious about this character, you're not obtaining him through raids, you're not obtaining him through Guild War or any of that stuff that we've been doing for the last few months. You have an actual quest. Now, the quest that is available right now basically gives you the unit and helps you essentially build him up to a certain point. Dark Veritas is not fully in the game as of this recording. He's actually just partially in the game, and there will be more quests over time to get everything that you need to fully build him. Think like Wind Veritas, but with the wonderful condition of you actually have to fight on some maps. Now, the other condition in getting this character is that you are going to need to use the other Veritas units that you have built. So basically, you are limited to the 7 Veritas units that have come out so far that you have been upgrading over the course of the year to actually use in this mission, plus Lucio. I'm not entirely 100% sure why. There's probably a lower reason that I'm ignoring for the sake of recording this video. But yeah, in this actual situation, this is what you will need to get ready to be able to do this. And to be fair, I have been putting in some good effort. I have completed a bunch of the Veritas units so far, so I think it's quite doable. As you can see, I haven't done the map yet. I'm saving that for another video. This video is examining what we've got with Dark Veritas in the game so far. His 120 version, as you can see here, I've thrown into a dark party now just to show off Sephiroth in the same dark party. Keep in mind that neither of these characters have too much in the way of reincarnations, or 0 reincarnations in terms of this guy, who also doesn't have his 140 yet, but we do have the crystal ball boosting stats, so that is a consideration for how strong this character looks. But somebody asked me recently about what I thought of where Sephiroth is in the current meta, the original Dark Sephiroth. And honestly, quite low. He just doesn't compare to how strong units are nowadays. And Dark Veritas does look like he's going to be that. So let's take a look at what we got. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about that damn Great Sword, because the Great Sword of Benediction... Hold on, my computer's having an issue. Not the... Save the Queen, my bad. The Reliquary has been upgraded. The full effect now, it is a 293 attack weapon, which is pretty high. Reduces physical damage taken for self, removed after 3 hits. Slash attack increased by 20, AP consumption by 20 decrease, and reaction block rate of 30. So this is the fully upgraded new version of this Reliquary. Glad we got that out of the way first. Now, taking a look at Dark Veritas, besides the artwork being absolutely fantastic, which unfortunately I can't show off, but will be on the title card, enjoy that, we are looking at a helmet for the final Veritas Trust Mastery. 488 HP, 18 defense, 3 spirit, 9 accuracy, and 4 critical rate. The Trust Mastery skill here is increase slash attack resistance penetration by 30 for 4 turns for self. Grants the following effect upon a hit: dispel all debuffs when performing a critical hit, dispel all physical damage reduction when performing a critical hit, and dispel all magical damage reduction when performing a critical hit for 4 turns. So quite a bit of dispel from the effect on this. And for 4 turns, yeah, you're probably going to get a few hits in. So this could seriously mess up some other teams. And I'd be interested to see whether this Trust Mastery overall ends up really high on the want list for teams in the future. Master ability, increase attack by 20% for self and single target resistance penetration of 20. Probably pretty good for what we are looking at. If we look at his resistances right now, net positive for slash, pierce, magic, and shooting, which is overall pretty good. Frostbite resistance, sleep resistance, confuse resistance, and disable resistance. Actually things that are currently available in the meta on different characters. So I think it's pretty good. Sad there's no curse, but maybe we're just going to kill people with this guy. We haven't got there yet. Let's take a look. So starting off with support skills, we do have 2 support skills on his job. First one, increase defense penetration rate by 40 for self. Increase the effect by 4% every time you receive damage. So he actually has 40% just naturally, but after a total of 5 hits, we're going to be up an increase of 20% to a total of 60 defense penetration that cannot be dispelled. As for reaction block rate, 50 for self naturally, decrease AP consumption by 15, which honestly, you know, it's a little bit like, hey, come on at this point. That's factored into the cost of the unit, but also not going to complain too much. Now, interestingly, there is another condition on here of when his HP drops below 70%, he does get a following effect. 25% agility increase for 3 turns when HP is below 70%, absorbs 50% of the damage done for 3 turns, and only when HP is below 70% for self. So that's quite a big boost for him. Oh yeah, and slash attack resistance penetration of 40, because you gotta have something extra. So that support is looking really good. His other one is just straight HP and attack up, which is kind of boring, but actually kind of okay. I think it's generally good for what we will be wanting with this character, and I think it's generally fine. Generally. Looking at Dragoon, Dragoon does give him jump, healing up, and HP up, which is not irrelevant because he can actually restore his own HP. And Battle Axe is giving him increased accuracy of 25 and defense penetration of 40, which if you combine that with getting hit a few times on his main one, hey, defense penetration rate of 100%. Why not? It's not as amazing nowadays because resistances are everything, but okay. Let's take a look at some other stuff. So here, chance to counter all damage at 30% with an actual attack with great range on it, and you restore 10 AP for yourself. Original Helena would blush for such a thing. This is just a lot in a counter ability and kind of a dangerous one. Thankfully it's not preemptive, as that would be really nasty, but if you're getting AP regen off of a counter and still dealing damage, you're doing alright. Looking at his Dragoon job, pretty much what I thought. There isn't too much here to be excited about. We're looking at the attack increase and the protect, which basically comes with that Dragoon job, and maybe move and jump up as well as decreasing bravery. But for the most part, you're not using jump skills with this guy. So let's move on. As for Strider, Strider actually does have some range on it, can inflict slow, can deal damage and decrease attacker magic by 40%, breaking physical barriers. Strider is by far and away a really good option depending on what we see in his main kit. Speaking of which, let's talk about that sub of the main. First one, just a 4-cast, 2-hitter with short range. Good for chaining, not much else. And even then, so-so for chaining, really. As for this one, inflicts disable, which is kind of interesting, but very unlikely that you are going to be running on this guy. Really high enough faith that this is probably super accurate, and as you can see, the range on it is still pretty limited, so I'm going to pass on this one. The Battle Strider is looking really good for having some options, or potentially Dragoon for a few extra buffs. His primary job, or attack, is pretty good, actually. 121 mod with restoring 200 CT for himself. That's just a lot of potential tempo and a good way for him to build towards the end of the match, when these short AP abilities are used, when two characters are left over, if you're getting 200 CT over your opponent, there's an actual decent chance you can one-up them. As for this, 200% chance to ignore fatal damage, and if you have fatal damage, reduce physical damage chance by 15% for self if you have that ignore fatal on or reduce physic, as well as when HP drops below 20%, you will get a secondary effect happening, which restores 30 AP when your HP drops below that margin, or that criteria. Also, when conditions are met for the auto cast of the following skill, if you have one of more of the following effects. Basically, it's just a whole bunch of conditional stuff on this, which is reducing the amount of physical damage you're taking, making sure that you can survive a fatal hit, which is, can be gotten through, but not necessarily always. So might need to think about who you put this unit with. All right, scrolling up a little bit, our next ability, this one, decrease single target resistance by a factor of 60. So we got some single target shred, which is basically what his attacks are doing for 3 turns, but it is only for one target. Makes me a little sad. 200% mod with a 100% hit chance, which is kind of nice because, hey, he's got some high accuracy on one of his abilities. Next ability that we need to talk about is this one. So reduce the physical damage taken by 50% for 4 turns for self, increase slash attack by 30 for allies, increase AoE resistance by 25 for allies, and grants the following effects of when an attack hits for allies of sealing barrier destruction for 3 turns, and this effect is active for 4 turns. Grants the following effect of sealing also all buff removal for 3 turns. For 4 turns. Okay. So not necessarily bad by any way. The fact that he is actually being a team player and giving a good skill to, or good support to other characters, is quite nice to see for Dark Veritas. As for our last 2 abilities, select 2 targets. You'll love to see it, especially if you're me. Decrease slash attack by 60 for 3 turns. So decreasing actually by a factor of 60 for 3 turns for whatever opponents are unlucky enough to get hit by this. Oh, sorry. This one, slightly higher range. 200% mod on it increases damage as HP decreases based on the base 100% of Dark Veritas' HP, and decrease healing power by 50 for 3 turns for your opponent. Our last ability is job level 25, AoE, which a little unfortunate since most of his kit is single target resistance, but okay, see what it does. Reduces counter chance by 100 for 3 turns, increase defense penetration rate by 30 for 3 turns, 200% mod, and decrease debuff effect weakening by 40 for 3 turns for targets. So there's a bunch of stuff that he can do. His final ability is more utility, but it does actually do some stuff which can be generally useful. I can see him in single target weak teams being really, really useful and doing some good stuff. In the main part of his kit, we're missing certain things though, like barrier destruction and whatnot, as well as, re-raise removal and certain things. So you're definitely going to want to think about who you are running this character with to get the most out of him and the most effectiveness. But that might just necessitate how good Strider is for having a status effect on one of the abilities, and more importantly, being able to break physical barriers, which is definitely important for him. So as the music runs out, that's all for this look at this character, and we'll do the quest as well as take a look at him and his performance very soon. Take care.